Niigata Prefecture is number 15 here, which is on the Japan Sea coast. And there's Sado Island, facing North Korea and Russia. Here's a picture of Niigata Prefecture with Sado Island there. Niigata City here, which is a population of nearly 800,000, is about 20 kilometers from Sado Island. But of course, conditions in Niigata City and Sado Island could not be more different. If we look at the population progression from 1884 through to 2005, the right-hand scale there is the population of Japan, and the left-hand scale is the population of these regional areas. You can see the population of Japan expanded rapidly, but has now entered a period of decline. Population of Tokyo, excluding the Second World War, has expanded rapidly and is 10% of the population of the entire country. The populations of Kanagawa and Aichi. Aichi is the prefecture where Toyota City is located. These two prefectures also expanded, but predominantly in the period after the Second World War. And their populations also are flattening out and will experience decline from about 2015, 2020. And among rural regions, of course, the population since 1884 has not expanded very much at all, even though the birth rate was very high in those regions, and that's because of continuous out-migration of young people to metropolitan areas, and the result has been a big expansion of metropolitan populations over the long course of Japan's modernization. Niigata Prefecture here has not expanded very much at all in that 120 period. If we look at Niigata Prefecture and Niigata City, the left-hand side is Niigata Prefecture and the right-hand side is Niigata City. We can see that Niigata Prefecture's population since 1935 has remained relatively stable, just under 2.5 million people. But the Niigata City's population has expanded rapidly from 1920 all the way through to 2005. And we can see at 2005 that actually that line from 2005, the period between 2005 and 2010, Niigata City itself will experience depopulation. If we go through to smaller settlements and compare those to Niigata City being the line at the top here, you can see that Niigata City and Nagaoka City, apart from during the Second World War, experienced expansion and are just now entering a period of either stagnation and then decline. Whereas other areas, Shibata City here has been stagnant all the way through the post-war period and is now entering a period of decline. And Sado Island has declined pretty rapidly and consistently since the 1950s. And we can see here that from this graph, if we extrapolate out into the future, given that Japan's population is now declining, but not just rural areas, but also other areas in Japan will experience depopulation and the accompanying difficulties that rural areas have been experiencing in the past. If we look at Sado Island and out-migration from the island, we can see some very interesting statistics. And what I'm trying to do here now is to drill down into the very, very local circumstances of one place in Japan. We can see that employment is by far the most important reason for out-migration, but also there's a considerable in-migration for employment reasons into Sado, such that the net migratory effect is not so large. For education, however, we can see that there is only a small number of people leaving Sado Island in 2005, but almost no one coming back in for educational reasons, educational advancement reasons. Consequently, the net out-migratory effect in Sado Island is really quite marked. It's in fact the second most important after work. Remember that this is 2005, and there are very, very few young people in Sado Island who are able to migrate because of the severe reduction in the number of people, children who were born and so on. If we look at the picture from 1980 to 2005, we can see that apart from 2005, education has been consistently the largest contributory factor to out-migration from Sado Island since the 1980s. Actually, if we extrapolate back before the 1980s, the same pattern occurred, but was actually more marked than in the 1980s. So, one of the issues that the government in Japan has been trying to address is the issue of employment for local people in rural areas. But actually, if we look at these figures, we can see that the most important factor to some of the findings are that there's been a long-term population concentration in metropolitan areas in Japan, a relative stagnation of the population in regional prefectures, such as Niigata. Chronic out-migration of young adults from regional prefectures into metropolitan centres for educational advancement and labour force entry. But what I want to focus on is the issue of educational advancement, because I think it's one of the missing pieces of the puzzle that the government is really not addressing right now. The national scale process of metropolitan population concentration has been mirrored at the prefectural level too, and a major cause has been the migration of adolescents and young adults to prefectural urban centres for educational advancement and labour force entry. So people have been moving from Sado to Tokyo, but also they've been moving from Sado to Niigata City. While migration was the principal cause of regional population decline and aging during the immediate post-war decades, the natural increase in the national population was at or higher than the replacement rate, so the national population continued to grow, even though the regional population was migrating into the metropolitan areas. That situation has now changed, and both the national and prefectural natural and social migration into show a long-term decrease far into the future, beyond 2050. The Japanese population will decrease from now beyond 2050. And by 2050, the national population is expected to decline by approximately 30%, down to 95 million by 2050. Those figures are taken from the National Institute of Population and Social Security Research, and actually those figures are rather optimistic. By 2020, only Tokyo, Kagawa, and Okinawa will grow. Peripheral regions were the first to experience depopulation. The regional centres increased in size. Now nearly all settlements, including Niigata City, are experiencing depopulation. And so a new pattern of population changes emerging, whereby depopulation is advancing in from the periphery, encompassing larger towns and cities, such that in the past where rural areas and regional areas were declining, metropolitan areas were increasing, both types of settlement are now decreasing. So, although workers produce the largest numbers of out-migrants, there have also been considerable numbers in-migrants for employment. However, educational advancement of adolescents and young adults has been the largest long-term contributor to net outward migration from South. And this has had secondary